Hello viewers, welcome to another episode of the Free Marketeers vlog. I'm joined today by Chris Hattingh. I'm Martin van Staden. Unfortunately, Mpiaki Dlamini couldn't join us today. He's working on some very important data work from home, where he has a more powerful machine, I believe.
I thought it's because we tried to force him to wear a suit and he was like, no,
oh, right,
not today.
yeah. So we're both suited up today, as you can see. Usually it's just me, but times are changing.
Oh boy.
So that's
Yeah,
good.
we're regressing.
Oh, please, no. So yeah, it's been another busy week. We didn't have Free Marketeers last week because Chris and I were in Cape Town doing my book launch. That video is on our YouTube channel if you want to watch that. And it was pretty successful. I enjoyed it. But yeah, so let's jump back into talking about how great things are going in South Africa. So I thought we'd begin this episode talking about the regulation of vaping. So in South Africa, I believe it was last year the tobacco bill came out. And before that it was a tobacco bill,
Yeah.
regulate smoking, plain packaging, stuff like that.
Right, displays of,
Yeah.
of cigarettes, that kind of thing.
Yes,
yeah.
and then they slapped on this extra electronic delivery systems, vaping.
Right.
And basically, the bill says you're going to regulate vaping, but then you go to the policy document and to the socioeconomic impact assessment, and they say, yes, we've looked at vaping and it might be harmful to your health.
Oh, okay.
Not it is harmful or it's dangerous or anything. No, it might be. We don't really know, so we're gonna regulate it just to be safe. So now in the United States, I believe in Massachusetts, last week,
Yeah.
they totally banned vaping, and I was like, wow.
Hashtag land of the free, man.
Yes, I mean, geez, in America, of all places, they've banned vaping but not smoking, for instance. It's because something like 19 people died because they smoked black market vapes. So now they're driving all the vapes into the black market so that fewer people can
Is this
die.
part of population control?
I
or-
think so, yeah. So what do you think about this phenomenon?
Well, in terms of issues facing South Africa, I think when I struggle to sleep at night, when I worry about what's really going to affect myself and the viewers and everyone else, all the South African families trying to make a living, struggling, to lift themselves up,
Yeah.
I immediately think vaping
Yes.
and then the state of Tito Mboweni shoes.
Oh, yes.
I mean, these
Yes,
things
yes.
they should be of national discussion every single day. We need policies, we need regulations, we need impact assessments, we
Yeah.
need committees,
Yeah.
everything you can think of.
Yeah,
No, obviously I'm being facetious.
Don't forget about Musi Maimane's car,
Oh, right,
which is
right,
also
right.
up
yes,
there.
sure,
yeah.
sure. Okay, sorry, I forgot that
Yeah.
one. I apologize
Yeah.
for your serious concerns
Yes.
with these things. Now, obviously I'm being facetious
Ugh.
and sarcastic, but it's maybe it's another easy thing for the government to target, as they tend to. They don't want to do the hard work of actual policy reform, actual change, anything radical. I know that there was some feedback this week from the governing party, their latest consultations and meetings, and a lot of analysis around that meeting was that they're not committing to serious reforms. And I'm not that surprised, because that requires real implementation and work and that sort of thing. So with this vaping thing, you find something that's convenient and easy, and we're acting in your own interest, you, the South African citizens who can't look after yourselves after all. You're not responsible adults. It's just another example of that. It's not going to have any sort of good effect, I think, in terms of driving more and more people onto the black market. That always happens with
Yes.
prohibition, banning. For those of you who don't know much about prohibition, just go look at a certain chapter in American history and how successful they were
Yeah,
in
1920s. Yeah.
in restricting the flow of alcohol, as one example. The more you try and ban something, or the more you ban something, the more people are attracted to it, the more
Yes.
they try and find it. It's the same sort of idea with books, banning books, burning books.
Yeah.
When something is sexy and dangerous, then people try and get more of it. And,
Of course.
And they're going to get it in non-safe ways, where it's not as pure.
No,
that kind of
exactly.
thing.
That's
If
why
it's-
those people were killed in America.
Right.
They wanted something that was already banned, I think. Those flavors of vaping. So they thought, wow, this is banned. Why? Let's go check it
Yeah,
out.
test it out. Yeah.
And then they died because
Yeah.
it's I want to say unregulated, but by regulate I mean it's not in the open.
Yes,
The market
yes,
doesn't
sure.
regulate it. And they tried it and they paid the price. And now they're gonna try and unregulate everything. That's
Yeah.
basically what banning does. You don't regulate something when it's banned. You totally deregulate it. Unregulated maybe is a better word. And then prohibition, the violence that comes with it, comes with the banning of prostitution. All these things follow from when government tries to be a parent, when government says, no, we've decided this isn't good for you, my children. Let's put the cookie jar on too high for the children to reach. And then what happens? The children build something to climb, and then they fall and break their necks. So that's what happens, and it's happening with vaping again.
I think, let's say that there's a strong case for the ill effects of vaping, and the Department of Health strongly believes in this, and they want to educate people. I'm fine with that if they want to like put out information, that sort of thing. But there's a difference between that sort of thing, pushing your ideological view, and using force to restrict other people's choices. So there's a crucial difference. So I mean, I'm sure many of the viewers don't necessarily agree with us on all the minutiae of libertarianism, or this thing or that thing, or proper government, but then we can debate these things. If your beliefs and your ideology requires force to impose it on other people, I think there's a problem with it, morally speaking.
Yeah, and I mean, what government is doing here seems to me to be only ideological, because I think all the evidence that has been, all the studies that have been conducted, show very conclusively that vaping, whether it's harmful or not, is far less harmful than smoking. Like, yes, there may, I think there was a concern that vaping puts in microscopic pieces of metal into your lungs. But they said even though that is probably the case, you're going to live a full life. Unlike smoking that kills you before gives you lung cancer and all these things. So, I mean, Public Health England, part of the NHS, the English welfare nanny system, they said vaping is 95% less harmful than smoking.
Jeez.
And of course, government totally ignored that. And
for something you said 95%, that's 95. That's statistically huge.
It's massive, and they've ignored that. They said, yes, no, we're looking at that 5%. That's a problem. It may be very harmful. We don't really know. We haven't done this study, so we're just going to regulate it in South Africa, and in Massachusetts case we're going to ban it. So yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, I'm not a pragmatist. I dislike the idea of pragmatism. But for government to basically say, no, we don't really care about evidence and stuff like that. We're just going to do this because a few hundred years ago, a guy with a bushy white beard said it's better for government to control these things. That's why we're just going to go ahead and push ahead. That's a problem, I think. So yeah, it's quite distressing. And I mean, in another respect, government has this week also told us that it's going to intervene more, and that was by the ruling party rejecting Tito Mboweni's policy proposals. Now, I think we've discussed that once or twice on this vlog, and I think we've written about it as well. An imperfect host of suggestions made by the current finance minister. Nothing really radical from our perspective, at least. Very radical from the Communist Party's perspective. But basically just saying, you know, guys, we need to not be as heavy-handed as we have been. Maybe let the economy breathe a bit. And the ruling party rejected that. They said, yeah, we're going to talk about this a bit more. We're not really keen on what it currently says. What do you think about that? I mean, you already said the guy, there's no will for reform, really. I mean, this is someone from within the ruling party. And they just reject it off by hand. I don't know if you have any more thoughts on that. It's quite
it's just that, I mean, this is politicians of all stripes. I don't want to make it out that it's only the ruling party.
No.
But we talk a lot about economic growth and transformation, radical economic transformation, rising inequality, all this sort of disparity, that kind of thing, and how important it is that we address these challenges, that we think about actual, real reforms, that we try and change our trajectory from the current sort of low growth path we've been on for at least the last 10 years, I'd say. But then on the other hand, you get these sorts of proposals from Minister Mboweni, which I'm sure, like, from the libertarian lens, you can nitpick and all that sort of stuff, and you can analyze, and that's, we should have those debates as well. But just from like the practical, pragmatic point of view, there are things in there that you can implement and start to change in the right direction. So, do do the politicians actually care about the plight of South Africans, or is it really just a bunch of talk? And and that talk gets reinforced every year, every 4 years before the election.
Yeah.
Then they'll talk about, okay, elect us and we'll do this for you, or that for you, we'll change things. Yes, we heard you.
Yeah.
But then fundamentally, philosophically, they never change their sort of view of the role of government. So it is kind of depressing. The fact that it came out, I don't know if that's more of a reflection of Minister Mboweni with his sort of knack for flying a kite for lightning issues, and then he tracks the kite to sort of see what gets reaction, what doesn't, or if it's a reflection of a 2-year consultation process. Okay, now we're going to put this out. Yes, our more left allies are going to give a backlash and that kind of thing, but you know, we're going to put it out regardless. So I don't know if it's an indication of something like that or not. I really just think if you're serious about reforming some things, you should take the low-hanging fruit, as we say, where you can get them. Stuff like selling off SAA, at least parts of SAA, unbundling Eskom, all of that sort of thing. I would prefer banning or stopping the national minimum wage completely, but putting a freeze on it for, let's say, 5 years. Let businesses not have to deal with that kind of thing. Exemptions for small businesses, all of the above. Not now pursuing more regulations and restrictions on foreigners who come to trade here. Like all that sort of thing. All of that stuff would see more economic growth, but they keep going in the wrong direction, and it's sad to see, obviously. For us here, you know, we can write about these things and talk about them and talk to the viewers about them, but we go about our daily lives. For people in townships around South Africa, all these more controlling policies, which Mboweni might be trying to reform in some way, they increase inflation, they increase the cost of living, like petrol, bread, all of this stuff, and people, their money isn't going as far as it used to. So it has a real effect on very many South Africans' lives. And for this party, this government to now be however many years after apartheid and not still be talking about apartheid, but be talking about progress and improving things, and they still want to continue along the same path. It's sad to see. Yeah, no, I mean the only two major reforms, if you can call it that, from that same NEC meeting was there's still the NEC is asking President Ramaphosa, where's that fiscal stimulus package that you talked about in 2018? So they want government to pump more billions of taxpayer money into government programs, increase spending to stimulate small business and entrepreneurship, give grants and stuff. I mean, that's definitely not the way to encourage growth, because it doesn't come with the same incentive. You using your own money to build up your own business, but you're relying on a government grant. I mean, it's not sustainable, I think is the word. Yeah, it's artificial growth. Yeah. If you prop up the level of growth with government subsidies and stuff, at some point the bottom's going to fall away. Yes. Like with the Eskom debt, the SA debt, at some point it's going to have to be accounted for. And what's going to happen then to all these social welfare programs, as one example. Yes. And the other major reform we know quite well here, which is expropriation without compensation. They're still saying, we're still very keen on this, let's push ahead. And I mean, as they're doing this, as we're talking right now, taxpayers, high net worth taxpayers at least, are making plans, offshoring their money, getting their children out of the country, getting themselves out of the country. So as all this is happening, the level of tax that government collects is decreasing month by month, day by day, in fact. And it's worrying about a fiscal stimulus package to put in more taxpayer money into grants and so forth. And at some point, the tax money is going to dry up, and then obviously the stimulus package isn't going to work. So I don't know. This is something I often ask in the office. Very, I'm perplexed by it almost. It's like, does this government not want itself to get more money? Yes. I mean, I'm a radical libertarian. I don't want the government to make a lot of money from taxes. But if I were the president or even a Communist Party member, I'll be like, wow, geez, I really want the government to collect a lot of money, lots of tax money, trillions even. But they don't do the things that you would do to increase your own revenue. So it needs to
lower taxes, as odd as that may sound. That is how you're going to get more people into the country to pay taxes, and you're going to increase your revenue. You need to can any idea of prohibiting foreigners from operating in the country. I mean, geez, these are the people of spaza shops and so forth in poorer areas. I mean, they're probably some of the only ones paying taxes if they're legal immigrants, for instance. So, and obviously you need to abandon expropriation without compensation, because any type of investment, even domestic investment, is going to run totally dry even if there's just a threat. The idea when they go to bed at night about, wow, when I wake up tomorrow morning, my property there in the Free State may just not be mine anymore. It's going to be like, no, I can't take that risk, I'm out. So yeah, it's, as you say, it's definitely a philosophical problem. It's a switch that the political class almost need to make in their minds of, wow, we've been our whole premise for how to progress South Africa, how to advance South Africa, has been totally flawed.
It's all very like state driven and state focused. And again, I want to reinforce the point about the political parties. I think all of whom see the state as central to uplifting people. They just want to be in charge of the levers of power. It's not a debate about the role of the state. It's just, okay, well, maybe we'll spend a little bit less than that party, but at the end of the day,
we'll increase the social grants.
Oh, right.
Remember.
So, South
I
Africa,
agree.
think about South Africa in terms of like a balance sheet or that sort of Venn diagram, and you have different intersecting sections, and compare us to other countries. We're adding more and more reasons for disinvestment, for not coming here. The list of positives is shrinking. Like, there are still some, and I think people want to stay here and build their lives. People love South Africa. Their families want to stay here. They want to raise their kids here. But at the end of the day, reality bites very hard. When we're in the same position as Venezuela and Zimbabwe, which we're heading towards progressively. So South Africa is not making a very strong case for itself in terms of investment and that sort of thing.
No, and I mean, just to add on to the ridiculousness, I mean, you told me this morning that SABC, the broadcasting corporation, got, what is it, a 2.1 billion rand bailout.
Yes, that's not even as much as they wanted, apparently.
I mean, what value is the SABC adding to the economy right now? I cannot imagine. I understand for people who cannot afford the STV and so forth, that's their only entertainment, access to news, etc. And that's fine. But to give, and even then, it should be profitable, because if you want to make radio services available cheaply and so forth, I'm sure there's a market for that. But what the SABC has done, I mean, since the days of Claudio Motsoeneng and even before that, it's just been total mismanagement, silly programs that don't really have anything to do with what the SAB, I mean, local content, basically saying, oh, we won't broadcast anything except if it's 90% local content. I mean, my goodness, I don't think South Africans care where the content comes from as long as it's entertaining. And now it's costing the taxpayer and inevitably the poor, because they're not going to decrease money for SOEs. They're going to take it from the police, who have to service poorer areas which can't afford private security. So the poor suffer the most at the end of the day, but also taxpayers are fed up. They're leaving, as we've said. So, I mean, this just adds insult to injury, and I would argue this is totally unconstitutional, because the Constitution says the public administration must promote an effective use of scarce resources, and tax money is becoming an increasingly scarce resource. And the government just says, yeah, a bailout here and a bailout there, even though the minister himself apparently doesn't agree with this. So his hand is being forced by his comrades to do this. So, yeah, it's... Financially, I don't think South Africa is in a great spot, and I think our so-called leaders definitely aren't providing the solution. I think it comes back down to us as South Africans. We should we as the people in a mass movement should rise up and say, no, we need to stop giving the money.
This far and no further.
And I'm worried that we're not doing that. I mean, there was talk about a tax revolt. I'm not sure that's ever going to happen, but at least during election times we should I'm not saying vote for anyone in particular, but vote for people who do not want to continue the same path.
Yeah.
That's more or less my position on it, but we're not doing that. So I'm concerned that people aren't really identifying the problem correctly yet, and I think that's a void that we probably fill as the Free Market Foundation and some other organizations.
What you mentioned there about people being unable to afford DSTV, and many of the DSTV packages are quite expensive. I think they have quite a few options, but I'm not sure on the details. There are some which are obviously more limited. The channels you can get, but just the multi-choice especially, and DSTV, I guess they're painted as this big bad kind of thing, and they do have a lot of market share, and they have a lot of money that they then use to buy sports rights and reinvest and grow more. So you can have that whole debate, but just that sort of concept of unfair competition, and they're too big. Well, the SABC is a prime example of unfair competition, because they keep receiving bailouts and they're not performing. So there's nothing tied to their performance, so they actually have to match that money that they've earned, not that they've earned it in any way. So this sets the stage. It stacks the deck very much against any small players coming into the market, small competition. And the burden of proof rests on government to justify its continued bailouts of SABC. It doesn't rest on those who argue for the free market approach, which will say more players will enter the market. There'll be a market for provision of these sorts of things for poorer people, poorer communities. Maybe then DSTV would rejig some of the things they do as well, if it actually opened up to more competition. But at the moment, it's sort of behind the guise of wanting to provide for poorer people. They're almost exploiting them and affecting them negatively. So.
Yeah, and I mean, funny enough, I think part of the problem of the SABC's profitability is how it is being regulated. So funny enough, the government regulates itself. It's a very bizarre state of affairs. But for instance, ICASA is now proposing with sports broadcasting regulations, it wants to force SABC to bid first on all international games and stuff. And if it bids, it must show the whole event, they call it an event, like full and live.
Wow.
And I mean, I've been reading submissions on this, and everyone points out the fact that this is absurd. Like, it is illogical, because all that's going to be on SABC then is going to be some hockey game in Canada for like 10 hours straight.
But it's live, and it's the whole thing.
It's live, it's throughout the evening and so forth. And I mean, everyone points out, listen, SABC will never be able to do this. It doesn't want to do this. Its viewers do not want to see this, but this regulation is going to force them to into this, and I mean that's bizarre. It's gonna make the operation of the SABC more expensive. They're gonna need higher bailouts, but it just goes to show that government really spites its what's it saying? Its nose in spite of its face, something like that. Yeah, it's spiting itself, and
that's what it comes down to.
Yes, it's undermining itself. It's undermining its own profitability, and it's really bizarre. It shows that, well, there's nothing wrong with ideology per se. Everyone has an ideology.
Yes.
Sometimes people allow that ideology to really cloud their common sense to an absurd extent. And I think we're looking at that in this case.
Maybe a good ideology has an element of common sense.
Yes, you'd want your ideology to have common sense built into all of its assumptions.
Something like practicability and stuff. And that's also not to say it should be pragmatic, because I mean reality has certain requirements that you need to adhere to. So if you actually want to implement your ideology, you need to be aware of certain things that aren't going to change regardless of how much you wish they were different. Yeah,
and I think our Marxist friends just assume that this tax base will just be here forever, even though we now see that that is not happening, and our economy is basically just on the downward spiral. And if they want to implement their Marxist ideas, they need to give the free economy at least a chance to just grow again, and then we can come back with all this silliness again and push it back down. But to just push it down and destroy
some sort
it,
of base,
then it's not gonna work.
No.
So viewers, it's not a good week. I mean, there's always good news from abroad. I think the economies are growing. The American economy is growing. Sub-Saharan Africa is growing, with the notable exception of South Africa. Just to throw that in there.
Do you think any of these other countries are following more free market orientated policies.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, even Uganda, and I was very surprised, they've passed us in the Economic Freedom of the World Index. Uganda is above us, Rwanda is above us, they have been a while.
Obviously Mauritius is top 10.
And Botswana is above us, our own neighbor.
Yeah.
And all of these countries have great growth rates, and I mean, all the answers are there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's simple. If you want economic growth, you need to deregulate the market, you need to have gender equality in law, you need to have independent courts. Exceedingly simple.
Yes.
We can do it overnight practically. But yeah, there's just a hard-headedness. And I wish we could give our viewers a good story instead of this depressing thing. But I think we need to really tell the truth. We should.
Yeah, it's part of our role.
Yeah, a lot of organizations, unfortunately, talk about the optimism of our new administration and how things are looking up, and I think that's just reckless.
You can
just
have
reckless.
talk of hope, and it's important to have that in whatever capacity, whether hope in your country or in yourself, your family, your work, that sort of thing. But you need to be aware of where things are heading. Otherwise, you can't really prepare for the future. It would be, I think, it'd be remiss of people like us to write these things and have this information and not try and talk about them, on the public platform. Because it's important that people have as much info as possible.
Absolutely.
I mean, you all have to decide for yourself the line of how much you'll take, how much you won't, when you'll leave, when you won't, that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, we can only share the information with you from our free market perspective. And I hope, despite the negativity, that you have enjoyed this episode of the Free Marketeers. I think that's about it. We don't really have much else to say. And yeah, we will catch you again next week. Please remember to subscribe to our channel. It's the big red button right under this video. Like us on Facebook. That is Free Market Foundation South Africa, or in the URL facebook.com/FMFSA. Follow us on Twitter. That's @FMF South Africa. And please visit our website www.freemarketfoundation.com. Have a good one. Have a good weekend. And we'll catch you again next week. Cheers.